What's going on, guys? We already have one viewer tonight, so thanks for hanging with us, and hopefully we get some more, and hopefully we can give the people some really good content tonight. We have two lineups we're going to build. One is our normal pillar lineup, and then I had an interesting kind of a customer survey kind of a reflection on this season and how we can implement it without the names in the back of the jersey, more the process of the play. And I had Donnie and Gov go ahead and fill that out this week. And I'm basically going to fill it out live on the podcast as we build that lineup. So that will be our secondary lineup. But so we're going to get right into lineup builds pretty soon. But we wanted to quickly hit on some of these spread picks. But I would be remiss if I didn't introduce the guys first. How we doing, Donnie? How we doing, Gov?
I'm all right. I only got a couple more assignments, and I'm on a nice long break. So,
everything is good, and it is time to talk football. That's the most important thing.
Well, speaking of breaks, let's calmly and cautiously go into this. What are some of the breakdowns and spread picks we have this week? I thought this was one of the best weeks for our unit bet, I guess you'd call it. Like the bet we all three of us really loved. It was the quickest we came to the conclusion. So let's not waste any more time, Donnie. Let's tell the people what we came up with.
Well,
first let's go over last
we have
week.
to review.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
For our lock of the week last week, we had Texans at plus 14. They lost by 15. That one.
Yeah, I know that was so they missed an extra point. Like that one was very. It was so close. Miami let them come back so badly. Like it was supposed.
And
to
at the
be
end
the
of the game, the Texans were driving, and I think it was Kyle Allen threw an interception, or there was a fumble, and
yeah, it was so close. There was a lot of crazy like football shenanigans, but that'll happen. It will happen.
Speaking of shenanigans, can I give you a weird stat that I had heard? I didn't fast check, but I believe it to be true because it makes sense. So Lovie Smith coached college after his stint with the Bears. I had heard that Lovie Smith hasn't had a winning season in the NFL or college since, I want to say they said 2008.
That sounds right.
It's just
bizarre. That sounds like the last winning season he had, probably with the Texans.
Right. It's just bizarre because we pull the trigger so quick on these hot seat coaches. You know, we already saw Matt Rule get fired and then hired by Nebraska. Newsbreaker, if anyone's excited in the Cornhuskers universe. But so for him not to have a winning season until 2007, I think is kind of telling of what that franchise thinks. And so I don't think we should bet on the Texans anymore this season. I'll just say that. I don't know.
Last week was a pretty good week for me and Gov. I had Philly minus 6.5, barely hitting. Jets at minus 6. That's 2-0. Putting me at 13-9 on the season. Gov also went 2-0 with Cleveland 3.5, Bengals minus 1, putting him at 13-7-2. And Logan barely misses out on the plus 15.5 Rams and the Saints at plus 9. So he is down to 9-13.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was a good bet because I thought there was a chance we got John Warford.
It was a little odd that both large spreads covered.
Right?
That is a little odd.
Wasn't there a third large spread as well last week?
I feel like there was, yeah. Yeah, there was a few of them. There was a lot of blowout games potential.
And I will continue to attack them because I don't care what this is not college. We were talking about professional.
Yeah, like Miami was. Everyone was probably lapping that bet for the Miami-Houston game at halftime when it was 30-0. They're like, "Oh, it's done. It's over."
Yeah,
they barely covered that, and if the Houston doesn't miss the extra point, it's a push.
Well, you got to remember we're talking about grown adults, so like when the game's out of reach, they're going to pull starters because we're not talking about kids that like are foolish or immature. I mean, you could argue that some adults are still immature, of course, and vice versa. But like the name of the game in the NFL is staying healthy. So, like, if you got a big lead, you're going to pull your superstars, and that keeps games closer. But then, like, people get incentives, and they have big bonus incentives. So even if your team is a losing team, like the year the Lions even went 0-16, they tried up into the last second because we're talking defensive tackles had tackle incentives and stuff like that. So stuff we don't even think about from a fantasy perspective do matter to all these guys.
Yeah, that is true. I forgot to say our lock of the week is 5-3 now. Our lock of the weeks are hidden. And
they're 5-3. That's pretty solid.
That's solid, especially when the Texans were extra point away from push.
I don't need to be an asshole here, and like this will work against me and for me. But I always tell my friends, like when we did kind of tallies or sports bets like this, like I had this one friend who would get like really juiced up, if he was winning or if he was like in first place in all the predictions. And I always said, like, I'm playing for week 17. I'm playing for the playoffs. I'm playing for that finale. So, like, it's cool to track, but, like, we could easily finish with a losing record and then none of this matters. But I do think at the end of the day, we're going to have a pretty impressive record. But that's because I believe in you
guys. It's one thing if it was, like, a bunch of games, like, constantly, like we're picking 2 games a week and we're knocking out a block of the week that we're all confident in. Like that's where we really started to see a difference in our spread picks when we took this lock of the week into play. Because we all wanted to attack similar teams. And that's where I really like this lock of the week. It's taken away our favorite game most of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does.
And I don't think we've had the first 3 weeks we had these spread picks. We had duplicate picks, I believe, where you and Gov agreed. So you both took different variations of the same team. Mm-hmm. And we have not had that since we introduced the lock of the week as well.
Yeah. I would agree with that.
Yeah, that's good. I like this.
All right. So, our lock of the week this week is going to be back to one of our favorite teams to bet on, the Jets at +3. Is there a specific reason we just all love this game? Like it was the first team that we brought to mind, and everyone was just like, "Yup."
I like it because the Jets' defense is probably the best equipped for what is right now looking like the Vikings offense, this new sort of offensive scheme. They should have a corner that matchup right there, Sauce versus Jefferson. That is the key to that game. If Sauce can hold Jefferson to an average game, the rest of that Jets defense can shut down Dalvin Cook and Hawkinson and what else they got. It's that it is legitimately good enough to do that. So then you're just asking Mike White to do Mike White things, which is actually really, really good if you go by like the 3 times he started for the Jets the last few years. It's like, oh, yeah. So I don't know. Garrett Wilson's a beast. They have no real run game for the Jets. That sucks, but I'm willing to take them with the points. Like if they're going to be the underdogs, I don't think the Vikings blow them out.
I agree. Has Vikings blown anybody out really?
No.
I don't think they do. Like they'll win this game with a field. If they win this game, it'll be by 1 with a field goal at the end.
Look,
and we still cover.
I will fade the Vikings in the playoffs, but the Vikings are a playoff team, and I've said that they were a contender for the playoffs, but never a contender for the championship. It's similar to me with the 49ers. It's like they're a good regular season team, but I think you need that blowout factor to be a championship team. I just believe that. So people always want you to be like, oh, are the Vikings a pretender or are they real? They're real, but they're just not great. They're like condensed milk. it can be useful in times, but fresh milk is always going to be better. But the condensed milk is still better in a lot of recipes than just plain water. There's just nothing sexy or appealing about the Vikings. And honestly, I'm not even that appealed by Jefferson. I think we've seen a lot of receivers like him. I think he's overrated quite often. I think there's some things I like about the Vikings team, but I do think Jefferson gets too much credit. Kirk probably doesn't get enough. But that offensive line really was gelling early in the season, and without Duracell, I really do think that's going to come back to bite them. We saw with the Bengals having their bad offensive line, they were able to overcome it, but they had more talent on offense. I don't think the Vikings are a real threat down the stretch.
Well, I will say these last 6 games will be very telling of who the Vikings are, because they do not have a tough schedule with the Jets, Lions, Colts, Giants, Packers, Bears, all teams that they could lose to, but all teams that they should be favored in and expected to win.
Funny enough, I actually think the Lions are their hardest team left. The Lions should have beat them.
Jets, I think, are their hardest team left.
Oh, sorry, I missed the Jets. You're right. The Jets would be there. But I was assuming going forward. I wasn't counting this week as the current week. Yeah, I don't know, man. It'll be interesting to see how it all wraps up. Are we ready to build some lineups?
Yeah, unless we want to do our picks now and just get it out of the way.
Let's give the first pick and then we'll build some lineups.
Yeah, that's really good.
All right.
So who wants to go first?
You go ahead.
I guess I'll go first. Oh.
All right.
Whichever one's better for you. I just wanted to get my pick out of the way because
go ahead.
It's probably not. Yeah, I have the Bears at plus 4.5 against the Packers. I am completely off this Packers team, and the Bears, even with a hurt Fields, I think probably can come out here and win this game. But
Fields is playing though, Donnie.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
Fields is playing. I'm liking it. I think that they're going to just run all over this terrible team, and it's going to be a completely different game.
Oh, my God. Okay. Well, at least we know something this week then.
What's that go?
We know that I believe that Aaron Rodgers owns the Chicago Bears.
Yes.
One of my pick for this week was Green Bay covers. I see Green Bay minus 3.5. That was I'm locking that in. Sorry, Johnny. One of us is losing. One of us is winning.
This is good.
I'm taking the Packers to cover.
Well, I had it at 4.5.
I see.
So
I had it opening at 4 and 4.5. I have the Bears at plus 4.5, but I have the Packers at minus 3.5.
Okay.
That's what I'm seeing on my end.
Okay. So let me ask you this question. I know Gov's a big wrestling guy. And so are we going to get the mandible claw of Aaron Rodgers and this hand injury and this is the thumb broken? Is it not broken? Are we getting Dude Love? Are we getting the Mick Foley, Jordan Love experience from the Packers? And does that change your opinion either way?
Nope, because I know what we're getting. We're getting what I'm expecting to destroy the Chicago Bears that have they can't stop the run. I expect Aaron Jones and Dillon to just run all through them. Won't matter if Rodgers' finger don't feel good.
This could be the fastest game in NFL history, and I'm not even kidding. Both defenses are terrible against the run. Both teams are just bad.
I don't mind playing Fields with Aaron Jones. When we get to lineups, that's something I was thinking about just looking at everything right now.
That's an interesting build.
Might go naked Fields and just take Aaron Jones on the other side and then get my lineup in the middle. It is interesting, is it not?
Claypool at under 4K is interesting. And then Pringle.
He would be a solid cheap one.
But I think there's a lot of good options at receiver that are cheap. we'll get to that in a minute.
What do you got for your pick, Logan?
Let's see what I want. Obviously, you take the homer pick. Let me just do it. We're getting healthier on offense. We finally got – people forget. They talk about Aiden Hutchinson a lot. We traded up for Jameson Williams. Brad Holmes said that he was the best receiver in the league coming out as a rookie. So, like, I want your guys' opinion. Now that we haven't seen Jameson Williams, are you a believer that Brad Holmes is right, that Jameson Williams is the most talented? Or do you think he's crazy, given that you have the hindsight? We've seen Chris Olave and some of these other rookies. Do you think, like, not this week, but like this season, who do you think is going to have the most impressive, not numbers-wise, because Jameson obviously didn't play the whole season, but like, who would you want stock into for next season?
I would say Olave because I trust that offense more. I don't trust Goff and to use him correctly.
Fair.
So.
That's a tough one. Olave is a good choice, but that's a tough one.
Well, to give you an NFL comparison, what Goff thinks about it, they basically called Jameson Williams Devontae Smith with more speed. Now, I got roasted because I think he's more DK Metcalf, a shorter DK Metcalf, because I think it's kind of like Brandon Ingram. Eventually, he's going to grow and he's going to put on muscle as he becomes a pro. And so we can kind of see that Kevin Durant kind of slender build become a much more powerful build as we go on. But the kid can fly. I mean, he's got Tyreek Hill-like speed, but he's got like Keenan Allen-like route running ability, at least in the collegiate level. That's what he showed.
That sounds like Jamar Chase.
Yeah, I mean,
like
I've also heard that.
That sounds like Jamar Chase, really.
Yeah, you could be right because I've heard that comparison. I mean, but then some people call him the biggest bust in the league because they don't think he's going to stay healthy. So, like, trust me.
Well, that was the same thing with Devontae Smith. People thought Devontae Smith was not going to be able to stay healthy, and there you go.
Right. But let's be honest, we see wide receivers come in and make a quick impact. And, like, even if they don't stay for a long time, Kelvin Johnson made a huge impact. And so what I'm saying is, like, if you get a difference maker, even for 4 to 5 years, like not comparing Kelvin to Williams here, but if you get a difference maker for even a short amount of time, that playoff window, that Super Bowl window, the Giants with Odell, things like that, you can be competitive, especially in bad divisions, which I think the NFC North is going to be wide open pretty soon because I don't think the legacy of the Packers will sustain for very much longer. And I just don't think that the Vikings have long-term difference makers. So that would be my pick. I'll take the Lions. Basically, I pick them this week for my first pick.
What's the exact line? Is it -1?
It's -1 Lions.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay, so what lineup do you guys want to build first? The pillar lineup or our questionnaire lineup?
Let's do the. Actually, I like the questionnaire one.
Yeah, I kind of like the questionnaire one as well.
Yeah, let's start with that one.
So why don't you guys explain why you like it so much while I pull up the information?
I just think it's an interesting way a new twist on how to build a lineup that, it might not work. It might be all right.
I just
want to see it.
I think it is. It's interesting what our takes on it, especially collectively, will like end up leading us to in the lineup. Like I'm actually interested to see how that's going to go.
Okay,
Logan, you might want to change the type of stream view, because it I can see our things in our corner.
You. I guess I'm feeling confident that you guys can see my face, but yeah, you're right. If I do it this way, it does broaden the DraftKings screen a bit wider, so it is good. Thanks for calling that out, Donnie. Now, I was wondering if I could get you guys' help to actually make this more efficient, and if I can, it's okay. We'll survive. But can one of you pull up NFL Savant? and then I'll explain what we're doing here in just a minute if one of you guys pull that up, because that will give us a good idea of targets and some of the market shares.
Yep, I have it up right now.
And then if it's not too much trouble, also if you could pull up some sort of projections, that would also help.
I can open my projection set right now too. Yes,
Right.
I have
Okay.
all of that ready whenever you need to look at.
So that'd be great. So let me explain what I did. And it came to me in the middle of the night, like a lot of my bad ideas, but I think this one was pretty, let's just say, interesting idea. It might be terrible, but like that's part of the fun of building these lineups is bringing these guys together and forcing us to like not always like our picks individually, but trying to come together as a collective. And so I thought, well, what if we just tuck the positions and then we decided without the names on the back of the jersey, what's important to this position? And then we could take that collective importance and import it into a lineup without being swayed of, oh, Patrick Mahomes is a good quarterback. He's got a strong arm. Okay, let's plug in Patrick. Okay, well then, if you do that, we have the game stack. So I had these guys fill out this questionnaire based on just positional importance and what they valued in that skill set. Because for my job, we talk a lot about value and validation, and so that's where this idea came from. It was more of a question of what do you value for each fantasy position, and now I'll give you guys a second to explain what you mean when you answer this and how we would apply it if you'd like, or you can just leave it as vague as that, and we can build from there. So
I just need a second. So, but you can continue.
You need a second, Donnie?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you ready to go? We can break down
I am ready, sir. Yes.
Okay, so you said quarterback accuracy. What do you mean by that?
Like, I think a quarterback so often I've seen quarterback make solid reads, but like even over like it's the one thing that even like the guys over all of the like the guys who wow names that's horrible that's escaping me. All the
well, that's the idea.
You know what? I'm sorry. I can't believe it's actually like the telecasters. Say boom. Oh my God! I couldn't believe I couldn't get that word out. Yeah,
you got it out.
All the telecasters. That it's the one thing like they can point out, like oh look, like he didn't hit him on the numbers. I'm like, accuracy with the ball, I think is more important than being able to make every throw. How about you make the 4 or 5 we need you to make 90% of the time? That's what I need. That's why I say accuracy. That's the most important thing. I can deal with a guy who doesn't have a long, deep ball.
Mm-hmm.
That's why Peyton Manning was good.
Drew Brees.
Like Drew Brees. Like those are top level all pro quarterbacks all time. Their arm strength diminished as their career went on, but their accuracy was always on point. So the throws they could make, they made damn near perfectly.
Even though the 2-minute warning got off to a slow start, Gov, I thought you recovered very well in that statement, and you made some really good points. And I want to give Donnie time to get back in here. So speaking of accuracy, why don't we answer a question we got in the chat, and then we'll give Donnie a second to get back here just so he can hear all the good information.
Yep, I'm back now.
You're back. Well, let's still give the guys some accurate information, and then we'll continue to build this one up. He came in and asked us if we would go with Kenneth Walker or Chris Godwin in a full PPR league. This is an important week for people. This is like put up or shut up time for the playoffs, basically, for most people's leagues. Like this is like the last big push for fantasy football leagues. I would go Kenneth Walker. You have some late. Well, I mean, both games are late, I guess, but they don't have Aaron Donald, and that Rams team is basically giving up. And Walker is basically seeing a crazy amount of targets for a running back. So he could get as many targets as Chris Godwin gets, I feel like. But he also is a running back. I just feel like that for me, it's Kenneth Walker.
See, I am honestly leading the Godwin side, but That is dependent on if Marshawn Lattimore starts for the Saints on Monday night, which is really tough because you can't wait. You have to you either have to start Kenneth Walker or you're starting Godwin because you don't have someone else.
Right.
But if Lattimore is playing, he is usually just on Evans. They shut each other down. They might get each other thrown out. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
In which case, Godwin is the number 1 wide receiver for Tampa Bay. So I would not. It's very close for me, especially in full PPR.
I was just gonna say I don't think you can go wrong. Honestly,
that's a coin flip. Like if bullet to my head, I'm trying to make my fantasy playoffs. I'm probably playing Walker.
Yeah, but
I agree. I'd probably play Walker.
If I'm just trying for if I'm gonna make the playoffs, I'm just shooting for can I get a bye week in the playoffs or something? I'm probably playing Godwin.
Yeah, I guess it depends on your upside. Donnie, did you have anything you want to give the man?
I would go Walker just because I like having a running back, and I think that game's probably going to be not a blowout, but it's going to be around a 10-point game where they're going to want to run the ball.
Man, I honestly, I gave you an answer, but truly, I'd have to know the rest of your lineup because maybe you just start both of them, brother. I just think it's chocolate and vanilla. Why not mix the two? I don't know what the rest of your lineup looks like, but those are some pretty good options. And there's some late PMR options for DraftKings purposes as well. I mean,
if those two are your choice for flex, I'm thinking you probably just go with Godwin because you probably have a damn good lineup and you're in the top of your play.
Yeah, I'd say you're in good shape, man. You're flexing physically and mentally with that one. So good on you for that. Stay with us here. So, Donnie, I'm assuming you heard some of what Gov was saying with his accuracy description on quarterback. So what do you think would be more beneficial? Is if we broke down your quarterback division or we broke down the whole idea of Gov's lineup and then went to yours? What do you think is more advantageous for the people?
I would say I'd probably prefer to just go with for quarterback purposes, probably with Govs, just because
I'm saying I'm having you guys explain why you chose certain things. So do you think we should just trade off the different concepts on the position, or do you think we should break down each of our lineup builds first and then go from there? Does that make sense?
Should we go through quarterback first, or should we just go through mine and then go through yours?
We should probably just go through the one lineup and then the next lineup.
That makes sense. Okay. So, Gov, why did you say vision for running back, and how would that apply to DFS?
So when I say vision for a running back, more often I have seen very talented, fast, elusive running backs, but they run into the back of their blocker. They just don't see where to go. And then so often I see this guy who doesn't have that talent, but he knows how to hit that crease in the blocking scheme, and he just does really well. So it's the vision for a running back to actually know where to go and have vision of the defense where he's planning his run as he's getting the ball. That is very, very underrated, I think. People want power. People want versatility. Let me get a guy who can hit the hole right so that when my offensive line is doing its thing, we're getting 3 to 5 yards every single time minimum.
Makes sense.
Because he's going to get the hole and get to the second level, which will get you 2 to 3 yards. Some guys never do that. Some guys, now maybe the offensive line is bad, but I've seen plenty of times where the offensive line opens a hole, running back doesn't see it, runs around it, doesn't run through it, only gets a yard, doesn't get anything. So vision for a running back, which again, most people won't even say that. Most people won't think that. And I saw the guy in chat. I definitely would just start Jacobs. I think he's playing. But if for some reason he's not, he's in the late window, that's where you just play Walker, and then you're playing Godwin too.
Right. That's where you're happy about your utility of
Yep.
okay, if the electricity company
I would also
kills me
play
here-
Fields over Tua myself.
Right.
Is other part of his question.
I
Okay,
agree
but,
with that.
okay. So what was the? So we're on to the next one. That's wide receiver, right?
It is wide receiver. Right.
Yep.
So
Route
what
running.
route you said route running for wide receiver.
Yep. Knowing actually, like most offenses are built on specific plays that you're running. No one would dispute that.
Mhm.
Those plays are built on normally a wide receiver being in a certain spot at a certain time so that the timing is there, so that the quarterback can just react to the offensive line and know at 3 seconds I release the ball, it needs to go here or here because those are where the wide receivers are going to be, and I just need to know which one's open. In
Makes
the like that's a lot of things that quarterbacks are doing. They're trying to get everything else set. So like the line's blocking for me, I can just sort of like feel the pocket and move with it, like some of the good quarterbacks can do, while he's got his eyes downfield, looking to see where the holes in the defense are, knowing in his head wide receivers should be in certain spots at certain times. So that he's just trying to get his timing so he can make those throws. That's why most plays only last like 4 or 5 seconds. After that, you really are just playing catch. I'm just gonna like try to throw it into a whole random spot that I think a dude can maybe get to. Those are crazy plays, but those are also exciting plays. But like most offenses are methodical and they try to go down and do things with timing. And timing doesn't work with a wide receiver if they're not good at route running. If they aren't hitting that hitch at the right time, at the right depth, coming back to it if he needs to, instead of going the straight out, like that is an underrated skill that is only really seen in like the top 5 or 6 wide receivers.
Correct. Now, to speed things up a little bit here, because I think the rest of this makes perfect sense. You basically said for tight end, you wanted the ability to catch and block. So you're thinking like a Kittle.
It's mostly in their hands.
Right.
Like a good tight end has good hands. He can get the push on that block. He can get that sort of chip off of him with the hands. But then they also have good hands. They're able to make catches. So that's the most important thing.
Right. So to translate that to a lineup, you want a guy that's good in blocking and also has the ability to catch, like a Kittle. So when we look at offensive line, why don't you look at it as a chain thing? Because there's only one position in fantasy for offense. I mean, offensive line could obviously connect to your running back in the vision, but why don't you mention defense too, and like kind of sum up why you think tackling and leverage are so important and how that would apply to a DFS defense, perhaps.
So like leverage with the defensive lineman. That's a defense because they're going up against an offensive lineman, and it like just think about it against each other. What I said for offensive line was footwork. Mm-hmm. A good offensive lineman isn't dancing around defensive linemen. Like that's sort of the game. A good offensive lineman, his footwork is putting him in the right position to have all of the leverage for himself. A defensive lineman is a good defensive lineman always gets that leverage, always wins that leverage battle, no matter how good those really good defensive linemen, for whatever reason, whether it's using the bull rush or the spin move or whatever other technique they have. Sometimes it's pure power. Sometimes it's just like they have better footwork and can get better leverage. Yeah. And it's like it's sort of the same way, but defensive linemen aren't really more into footwork as they're more into like power and maybe spin move versatility. Right. Whereas whether it's run blocking or pass blocking, balance and where your feet are is hyper important for an offensive lineman.
I would agree. So now that we sum that up, Donnie, is there any players that are coming to mind now that you heard Gov's breakdown of what he finds important positionally? Like any DraftKings plays that are like, oh yeah, when he was saying this, I think this is the type of player he had in mind. Anyone jump out at you when it comes to that?
Well, For tight end, just to list off some guys quickly. For tight end, I'm thinking a guy like Kelsey.
Yep.
Wide receiver, I'm thinking Amon-Ra. Running back, there are so many running backs that can fit into that category.
Yeah. I think we have to get a pass running back.
There are
all the top running backs.
Again, most of my stuff will make you a top dude.
Right. But I think like the vision to me speaks to not only do you have the vision for running lanes, but you have the vision to be on the field at all times. Like you have the whole scope of the field, which means a pass catcher.
That's very underrated for a running back. Like he'll know when to block and
like,
he knows when to let go of that block because the quarterback needs the outlet.
Mm-hmm.
When I think vision for a running back, I think it's a name that doesn't really come to mind because of how big and strong he is and just how well he uses his body. But I really do think Derrick Henry. Like
that's definitely true.
He has everything else going for him, but
that's why he will hit that hole when it's there. I've seen that.
Fair enough. So for the sake of
Chubb
time,
is also very good at doing that.
Yeah, for the sake of time, we'll get.
But Derrick Henry doesn't get that credit because of his body.
I would agree with that.
True.
So for the sake of time, let's get into Donnie's lineup here, and then we'll do the same thing. We'll kind of, after you tell us why your concepts, we'll kind of go through a scope of what that could mean for our lineup, and then I'll give you mine quickly as well. So Donnie, you said quarterback consistency. Why don't you tell the people what you mean by that?
Well, I was also thinking accuracy at that point, but I don't really need my quarterback to be super accurate because, you have Justin Fields where if they're consistently doing what their body and what their athleticism is doing, and it's going to lead to wins, I'm fine with that. Now, in the playoffs, I definitely prefer more of an accurate guy, but as long as you're consistently playing well at quarterback and leading your team out there, like a Taylor Heineke even, that's all I need.
So when you say consistency, I'm hearing belief more than consistent. Like you're saying that you want a coach to believe in his quarterback, and you want that coach to put that quarterback in the right system and so that you're comfortable that they can run a consistent, what you're going to get from me kind of offense.
So, what I hear is basically, know what this quarterback's going to do.
Yep.
He does what he does, whether it's great or not. You know what this guy's going to do. Like that kind of stuff. There's a few quarterbacks.
That's why I brought Taylor Heineke's name into it.
You know what Jared Goff is going to do.
Mm-hmm.
We have the tape. We have the film. We know what he is. Yep. You can see what his consistency
I don't need the erratic Carson Wentz, who might turn the ball over 5 times.
Yep.
Same thing with Derek Carr.
Yeah, Derek Carr would be a perfect example. So, Donnie, you said running back explosive.
Yeah, I think that comes with vision. You don't get many running backs who can pull off a consistent explosive plays like a Breece Hall if they don't have any vision. The thing is with the speed, if you can,
is Donnie breaking up for you too?
Be the guy who's going to run over 2 guys and plow your way for a first down on 3rd and short.
Yeah, Donnie, you broke up a little bit there for us, buddy, but
I got at the end of it.
Yeah. So it doesn't even mean like breakaway speed. If you just need to be able to make an explosive play when your team calls on you. If it's 3rd and short, 4th and short, and you need to plow 2 guys to get that first down, that's a big play. That's going to be very explosive in an offense that, really needs it.
You literally mean it like in terms of you're going to keep your legs moving. You're going to fight for every inch, kind of. of an approach. Like you're going to do everything you can do
Right.
to give that team the energy or the boost it needs. I got you. So wide receiver, you said precision. Like I'm assuming you mean kind of route running as well, like Gov.
Yeah, that's exactly what I meant. Route running as well.
Okay,
You know,
fair enough.
if you are a good route runner, you can get open.
See, that
Yeah.
seems about right. Yeah.
Yeah, Gov covered
Having
that.
precision on where you need to, like that kind of thing is important.
Yeah, and Gov covered that as well. Gov also mentioned catching and blocking. Is that what you meant by versatility, or did you mean
That's exactly what I meant as well by versatility.
Okay, fair enough. Again, unless you want to add something to it, I think that it's pretty self-explanatory. And then
Yep.
offensive line.
This is where we kind of differed, but I don't disagree.
Well, I mean, you can have all the talent in the world at offensive line, in my opinion. If you do not communicate with each other and don't know who's picking up who's grabbing what, which blitzer going into what gap, it's not going to work.
I got you.
I love the little nuances of offensive linemen, and everything needs to be perfect. There is not really one thing, in my opinion, that's going to make you able to be a good offensive lineman. You need everything to work together in order to be a good offensive line core.
And then for defense, you said power, just like Gov. So like we want a team that's gonna stop the run and then wreak havoc in the backfield.
Yeah, if you can get an offensive lineman, off their feet, messing up their footwork, which is what that power is going to do.
Yep.
It's a game changer. You're going to be at least giving yourself a fighting chance. It all starts up front.
Well, I would be remiss if I didn't ask Govin, because your line or your concept idea were very similar in a lot of ways. Gov, is there any DFS plays, given Donnie's descriptions, that come to mind immediately after hearing some of his concepts?
Well, I mean, if we're gonna go with like explosive, now I think we're talking like Travis Etienne, we're talking Walker, the younger guys. Like they're explosive right now for running back. Consistency, quarterback. We were talking like Goff is consistent. Like Geno's not consistent. What we've seen from Geno is not what we see from Geno this year. So like I wouldn't put Geno in that thing, but like Burrow's sort of consistent. We know what he is after 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
I say Lamar's consistent. We know what he is after 4 or 5. Mahomes, those are like top end consistent guys.
Well, let me add a
Cousins. We sort of know like Cousins is Cousins is weird.
I think it's a little sporadic.
Cousins is consistently inconsistent. That's what we know from him.
Which makes him exactly the opposite of what I think Donnie was going for there.
Exactly. But like he's like the perfect, like it's like I'm not just trying to point out that young guys, like I haven't pointed out Lawrence as being consistent because he's young, but it's also because I haven't seen what his real consistency is. Same thing with like Mike White. But like I'm also not saying like Cousins isn't consistent. Mariota is sort of consistent. He's just not very good.
You tell me if I'm wrong here, Donnie, but I think, see, this is why it's interesting, because I don't think we would have normally talked about offensive line or defensive line. But as you were describing why you chose these things, I kept coming back to, you want a team this week that communicates well, that they know what they're doing. That was your quarterback consistency. So a quarterback that knows what he's doing, he's comfortable with his team. The offensive line has to be basically a veteran offensive line, an offense that's been together for a while. And you also want the big play opportunities. And basically when a receiver gets a chance, you want to know, okay, he's going to catch the ball. He's going to be in the right spot. So like timing and communication and being on the same page is kind of like your summary of what I'm getting from your concept lineup.
Exactly.
Okay,
and then if we go with me and we want the accurate, like I don't know about you, but I think we're playing Mahomes at quarterback.
Okay, well, let
He's
me give
consistent. He's accurate. He's behind a veteran offensive line. Like, Mahomes is consistent and going to do what he's going to do.
let me give you my lineup concept, and then we'll decide what that means. So I did this from a fantasy perspective, so not just what I think in real life you should do, but so in my opinion, when I looked at this concept, I just said to myself, what gives these guys the biggest ceiling, like in terms of fantasy? And for me, you want a quarterback that's a gunslinger. You want a risk taker, because risk takers, even if they get pick sixed, they get the ball right back. So for fantasy, if you get into a shootout game, you get fantasy points. So I want a gunslinger. Even if it could be in the high end with Patrick Mahomes, or it could be in the low end with Jameis Winston. There's a reason Jameis Winston scored so many points. It's because he always was willing to turn over the ball, which puts the ball in the air. Guys like Fitzpatrick, obviously the same. I mean, Joe Flacco won a millie, with that kind of same, so it doesn't just got to be based on a skill, a skill of a Patrick Mahomes. There are different examples there. Running back, you gotta have PPR. You gotta have PPR. In fact, I would say if you don't catch at least 3 passes on average, I don't want you. You got to convert that to power. So I want the PPR abilities. I don't even care about speed. I want PPR abilities with the ability to catch the ball. Speed is important if we can get it, but
you'd almost rather have Mike Tolbert. Just give me the big guy who can be a little bit of a checker.
Right. Well, even like a Stevenson, because Stevenson might not break it off and score you an 80-yard, passing touchdown, but he might catch 8 or 9 passes on one drive, which actually would be more valuable potentially than one long receiving touchdown, depending on how you had it stacked. So that's what I mean by that. So then I would go to wide receiver. You need I want the guy who has the most targets. I don't care about price. I don't care about offense. I don't care if you like the guy, if he's been in the league for 12 years. Give me the guy that has the most targets for the cheapest amount of price you can give me. Like, this is where I go value shopping. That's just for me. Targets are king. So if you get 15 targets, I want you on my team. I don't care if your quarterback sucks. I don't care if he's good. Like, I want targets. Similar to my wide receiver or my running backs. Offensive line, I obviously want a really good one that's going to keep a quarterback clean. And that's all I care about. I don't care about running offensive lines, because I actually think that if you're a good running offensive line, you might be bad for fantasy, because that means, your quarterback, you're probably killing clock, you're probably wasting time, and obviously you want more possessions in fantasy. So, like, I kind of want to stay away from a team that runs a lot on the offensive line, but also protects their quarterback really well. And then for defense, I want a cheap defense that gets a lot of sacks. So I want a defense that's underrated, but has the chance to really wreak havoc with the defensive end. I don't even care about the defensive tackles as much. Just a defense that's going to get you a lot of sack opportunities. They might give up a lot of yards, but they're going to get you a lot of sack opportunities.
I think I have the perfect defense for us, but I don't remember their price.
I have a defense in mind as well, but I obviously don't want to be biased. For tight end, I want a tight end that's basically going to get just as many targets as a wide receiver. I don't care if he lines up in line. I don't care if he lines up, as a tight end, but you got to get me targets, but you got to be cheap. I don't want to pay for tight end, but you got to get me targets. So looking at my lineup or concept of a lineup, what would you guys say? How does that translate to DFS? And then how do we start to build that given all three of our commandments, I guess, or ideas.
Just like a defense popped into the mind when the way you were describing it, that I think it actually fits all of our pillars.
Mm-hmm.
Or not pillars, but their descriptions. And I think that's Washington.
I
Like
think so too. That was the defense I had in mind.
Yeah, Chase
it's,
Young
it's
is
pretty
coming,
solid. Yeah, no, and they're
Chase-
gonna get if Chase is there, it's even more of a plus.
Chase is
Right.
coming back this week.
So
So-
I don't hate that. I was also like, not only with,
Oh.
I think we just are going to be paying up for Mahomes for his consistency and his ability to sling it and all of that. I was also
Fair
looking,
enough.
I think when it comes to like wide receiver, the guy I think we're looking at is probably Christian Kirk, because he is consistent. He gets his routes run. Like he's a very solid. There's a reason they paid him to be the number one. He's a very solid receiver. And
Fair.
for 6,300, he's getting like 10 plus targets a game.
Fair.
See, and I'd argue it's Amon-Ra, but that kind of correlates. So is that where we want to go with that?
I could
I
say
think
like if we try to fit in, like just start with that and then see what we can fit in.
I think it is a Monra. Based on what we said, we want good route runners that get lots of targets that also have that precision. And yeah,
Right.
Amon-Ra
I was going with the cheaper guy. I'm on Ross 7,100. Kirk's only 63.
Well, I want to just see what we can do if we just went on the concept and try not to focus so much on price. I mean, at some point you have to. So, but another guy that came to mind. So we already got the Commanders, right? When I was building this, that was exactly the type of line. When I thought about it, it translated well because you have the defensive tackle who gets a lot of pressure, and then Chase is coming back. You know, the Riverboat Ron likes to pressure on defense. They need it. Their offense isn't explosive, so they need the defense. You guys mentioned big, fast, explosive Derrick Henry. Why don't we get baby Derrick Henry and go Robinson?
See, I'm not a huge believer in Robinson yet. He hasn't shown me enough personally.
Let me just pull up his player profile.
He definitely hasn't shown me enough to get the name baby Derrick Henry.
Well, I mean, he's at Alabama. He's got a similar body type. He's caught the ball, but he's a big, powerful guy that has the upside. I'm not saying we have to go with him, but is there any other guys that come to mind? I'm just saying Robinson came to mind when we mentioned all the three running backs.
If Gibson were completely out, I would definitely go with Robinson. I would say that
For
right
me,
now.
Fair enough.
The running back that comes to mind, like when I just think of the ideal running back, when I say explosive, there's two guys that come to mind. Both of them might not play, and that's Travis Etienne and Breece Hall.
Well, Breece Hall obviously isn't going to play.
Right.
And then Etienne's weird because we saw Robinson be a healthy scratch, but then Patterson came out and said that like we haven't seen the end. Oh no, I'm getting my two trade partners mixed up here. Saleh came out and said we haven't seen the end of Robinson. So I don't know. It's like a Cam Akers kind of conundrum there. I don't know what's going on. Gibson is questionable. So let's do this. Let's leave Robinson out for now, but this would be a late swap if we found out Gibson was out. Would you guys agree with that?
Yeah, I would be fine late swapping in. So
okay, so let's late swap that in the morning if we need to. So the guy that comes to mind when I think of it, if it's not Robinson, would be Kenneth Walker, given all of our qualifications. Do you have
I think that's probably the right one. If we don't like straight up pay up for Henry or Chubb, I think it would be Walker. Now, McCaffrey is always a good pay up, but like I think for our fit, I think Walker's probably the best one right now.
Now, me and you especially, I think mentioned running backs that catch the ball a lot, which obviously Walker fits because Walker's getting tons of targets. It fits Donnie's power to, elusive kind of narrative that you guys were both presenting. But I think that we also talked about a lot of pass catching ability from our running back. We might have to save some money and you guys will hate it and think I'm a homer here, but Swift is too cheap. This is the first week he's practiced without a red jersey, which means he was able to take contact for the first time in practice all season. He fits exactly the type of build that we talked about with maybe getting more targets and receptions, but like he's been there, and most people won't do it because of the Jamal Williams thing. But Williams saw so many targets at the 1 yard line. And now that we got to lock him in here, I just want to pull up the player card. Is this the type of player? Or do you guys got somebody else in mind? Like, I think at this point we're looking at a guy who's going to catch like six targets, 7 targets. If there's somebody else, then by all means, tell me who that is.
I just don't think Swift is a play. Like, we talked about it earlier this morning. I get he's getting targets, but all it takes is one game for him not to get those targets, and he does not touch at all what he needs to be.
Yeah, if he doesn't break any of those targets, like
Fair enough.
Like he had
Or he
one
just
game
doesn't
with
catch.
8. He had the one game with 8. So realistically, you're going to say he's going to get about 4 targets because that's about what he averages. That's not that's not elite level target or anything. So like he has to break a big one, and like even he said he wasn't going to like feel healthy probably all year. So like I don't know if I go with that.
Yeah, I pulled up the wrong line, but I was like, why is Kamara still in here? I pulled up the wrong slate, but we'll put this lineup in something I think eventually, and I'll get it right. But we can keep building the concept of this. So, So if we're not going Swift at the cheap end, but we still want the receptions, we might want a Jacksonville comeback with St. Brown. Is it Travis Etienne? I'm thinking Aaron Jones, perhaps. Like a guy that we know is going to get receptions and also have that elusive but yet powerful mindset.
See, I love Travis Etienne, but the thing is, I just don't know what the injury, like if it's going to be hindering to him.
The Lions have been better against the run recently, too.
See, I would, in this specific lineup, I would love if we got news that Mixon was out and you could just throw P-Ryan in there, but that probably will not be the case.
What about if Mixon was healthy? Is Mixon a good play? Because he sees a lot of targets.
I would love to play Mixon. I just don't think we can afford it.
I mean, he saw 7 targets in one of his worst games. He saw 4 in his biggest game.
I wouldn't mind playing Mixon. I honestly wouldn't mind playing Mixon if we could.
Yeah, and I love this game as well.
So let's just play Mixon because a lot of people will play either Joe Burrow or Patrick Mahomes, but they'll forget about Mixon. The Q tag is there. That will scare people off. And we're kind of in a weird range because we're not paying all the way up, but we're not going with some of these cheap options either. So that could be interesting. One of the cheap options that we might have to mention, though, we got to save money and it could still fit, would be Knight. I know you haven't spent a lot of time with the slate yet, but he's 4,600. Is he just like an awesome value play for this lineup, or would you rather have a wide receiver in the
He's going to be the chalky running back that everyone's going to play. So like that's the guy. Like if we're playing pay up running backs, and we're probably not getting to him, so we have to pay down elsewhere. It makes the lineup different.
Yeah. Well, I would argue that Mixon makes the lineup so different that you could eat chalk if you wanted to.
Yeah, and go 3 running backs.
I mean, I don't think we should even decide. I'm just saying, what do you think about that? Because I do think there's a lot of good options this week for cheap guys. Sky Moore is also minimum price, who would be a good bring back, I think, in this scenario. But because Donnie talked about timing and being there and precision, and I thought of a guy like Keenan Allen. Is Keenan Allen not just like the perfect?
That is true.
Ideal guy for this lineup?
I also like that, yeah. Or
forget if we can
see. I don't mind Godwin either, though. Like
We
between
can't
those
play
two.
Godwin, though. This is the wrong slate. I selected the wrong one.
Okay.
So take out the Bucks guys and then the late slate guys. But so let's just build this lineup as if we could afford everything, and then we'll make pivots if we need to. Is there anyone else outside of Allen that comes to mind for you, Gov?
I'll admit I just had to step away for a second. Which Allen are we talking about?
Keenan Allen. When we
Okay.
talk about precision and route running and like targets, I think Keenan Allen fits the three of our concepts very well for wide receiver.
That does. Yeah, no, Keenan Allen is one of the like main dudes like that. Yeah.
And obviously, if we run out of money, then we'll have to make adjustments. But let's put him in there for now. I love Sky Moore this week too. It would be a good value play. He would correlate with this lineup, and with Tony is out officially, and you talked about guys that are going to play a role. You know what that offense is, Donnie. You talked about consistency and knowing a role and coaches trusting. We've seen Sky Moore in the last 2 weeks get 6 targets and be minimum price and a good offense. Like, we're not talking about Van Jefferson or Claypool and bad offenses. We're talking about one of the more explosive offenses in the league, consistent as hell. And you're going to give me one of the best receivers in the slot at basically minimum. Isn't Sky Moore a perfect build for this, or am I wrong?
Maybe not perfect, but the perfect build for this at that with a cheap price range. Like if we need a cheap guy, he is the perfect guy to throw.
Right, we do got to kind of
He's a very solid cheap play, I think. Yeah. Good environment. Yeah.
We have Pringle as well at 3K. We have Chase Claypool at 3,800. We could just stack the Lions Jags game and go with a guy like DJ Shark, or even take a bigger chance. And I mentioned Jameson Williams at the top of the show. He's 4K. Where's your lean there?
I'd rather just go with Sky Moore of all those choices.
Yeah. I also agree.
I agree with that, because I do think that fits like the concept of what we're trying to do here. So we saved some money. We're back up there now. Let's get the tight end, because I think so I said targets. I want a guy that's going to get targets. We also got to get a guy that's good at blocking and catching the ball. For me, for value, for cheapness, we're talking about TJ Hawkinson here, right? Or do you guys think we can afford a guy like Kelsey or
we definitely can't afford up to that.
Maybe even Kittle,
Kittle's cheaper, yeah, compared to how much is Andrews this week? Mark Andrews? Who's cheaper between Andrews and Kittle?
I think he's 6,600. So he'd be cheaper than Kelsey, but wouldn't save you a ton. You also got Pat Fryinbooth, who's also a really good blocker and saw a lot of targets.
I'll say Freiermuth looks solid to me.
Yeah, I like
save a little bit of money.
Yep.
Tyler Conklin for the Jets is also very solid.
Yeah, and with David Njoku out, we have seen a lot of Harrison Bryant on the field. Now, sometimes he does stay in the block more than he does catch the ball. So,
he's not quite the receiving option that Njoku is. Like, Njoku would be one of those guys who's always out there blocking, except when he's out there running routes and getting balls thrown to him.
Right. Now, Mooney got rolled out. So I would say, are we going to go with Pat Fryinbooth or Cole Kmet? Because Cole Kmet has been getting more and more targets. And now that we know for sure Mooney's out, we could go
I'd rather Freiermuth. I trust the Steelers will be throwing the ball. I like Freiermuth.
An interesting note on Freiermuth, and Gav, you could help me out here if I'm wrong, but I believe this might be Kenny Pickett's first dome game of his career. So, he's already seen 30 passing attempts in most of his games recently. we could see a more comfortable gunslinger kind of mentality because the Pittsburgh Steelers have been like a low ADOT target team, but that's because they play a lot of games outside and just played in some really adverse weather conditions recently. One of the games I remember being an island game and just raining like crazy. They're coming into the dome of Atlanta. I think this could be a high-scoring game. Is anyone against Freiburg?
No, I think we can go with Freiermuth.
Okay, so now we have a flex position. Do you guys have any lean between quarterback and flex? Did you want to correlate this? We talked about accuracy, consistency. So I think we're talking about like quarterbacks with good coaches. They trust each other. They have more accuracy than power, but they could do both.
I want it to correlate somewhat.
So a couple guys come to mind when I think of these things. I think of guys like Justin Herbert. I think guys like him, guys trust him. He's got good accuracy. He's got the ability to, I think the coach.
His inconsistency this year makes me really.
Fair enough. If you think he's inconsistent,
this year, like the first, like what I thought he was going to do this year, he has not done, and so that's where my thing, like.
So
I'm just
other one. Well, I was just going to say the other one you mentioned it. Jared Goff fits exactly the concept of what we said, right? Consistent, not great. You know what you're going to get. He doesn't do anything special, but Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes have rolled him out every week. We've seen big games from him, especially in these high total upside games. And then the other guy would be Derek Carr. Does anyone else come to mind when you think of this lineup?
I mean, outside of the top end options, like
well, we can go top end.
Honestly, I wouldn't mind going Burrow. I mean, technically, we would have the stack. You would have Burrow with Mixon.
But can we afford that?
It's gonna be hard for us to afford. Like we could. Well, like if we put Burrow in, we'd have like 4,200, 4,700.
Yeah, we're gonna be fine. We're fine.
We're fine.
We can find someone at 4,700.
Right.
We can always go down on defense too and see if there's anyone that fits our defense's mold that's a bit cheaper too. I think the Washington Commanders just fit exactly what we talked about.
I think the Commanders are exactly what we wanted.
Yeah, I don't hate doing the Commanders. Like,
let's give us a reason to. I don't think we should overthink it. It gives us a reason to pay up for defense when we don't usually.
I would agree with that.
Let's look at flex around 4,700 and see what we got.
You know what I would tell you is Jamison Williams is exactly 4,700.
I can't, like, if he were 3,700 or 3,500 or minimum salary, which is what he should be, considering he hasn't played at all, to put him as like a mid-range wide receiver is just that's just ridiculous.
See, and if I was going to play a Lion, I'm playing Jamal Williams, because at 4,700, I think that's way too cheap for him.
See,
I mean, our lineup's extremely different, so you could just play Sylvan Knight.
I was playing around. I actually think if you're going to play another line in this line, because we do have it somewhat correlated, it would be DJ Shark off the narrative that he used to play for the Jags. I do think that stuff matters, but for Gov, it doesn't usually matter. He does see a lot of downfield targets, but he's not really precision, and either is London. So if we took all of the three of our things, though, I think it's Knight, dude. I think it really is Knight.
Go down a little bit more below Burks. Let me see. But like it looks like it's Knight in that range.
I agree with it being Knight.
Because if you looked at what we want, we want targets, we want explosive, and we want the ability to like be able to see holes, and Knight showed that.
I mean, the only thing he didn't get was targets.
Right.
That's the only problem with Knight is while he got work, it was all groundwork. When they were throwing it, they brought in Ty Johnson. So that's the only if on him.
I would say this
in this range, there's not much else. Like Yeah, if for some reason Josh Jacobs doesn't play, Amir Abdullah would be fine, especially on the other side of Keenan Allen for correlation.
I actually like Xavier White if Jacobs doesn't play.
Even London as a bring back to the Pittsburgh wouldn't be horrible.
The problem with London, though,
Right.
is he doesn't fit my targets thing. Like he doesn't get targets at all.
That's
I
just
think
yeah, but
White's
that's
the
mostly
guy.
because Atlanta doesn't throw. Like
True.
without Kyle Pitts, if they had a game where Mariota threw it 30 times, London's probably getting 10 targets at least.
Fair enough. I think Knight's the guy, and Gov, I hear you on Knight with the whole Ty Johnson thing, but if I'm not mistaken, Ty Johnson got most of his receptions in the first half. He wasn't really doing anything with that efficiency, and that's when they turned to Knight more in the second half. And Knight, I think, saw 3 to 4 targets in that game as well, and they were all late. Now you could argue they were up in that game, or maybe Knight showed the coaching staff, you know what, he's a rookie, but he's still willing to, he can play a little bit.
I mean, I'll say that it looked more like to me like Johnson and them both sort of did the same thing. It was throughout most of the game. And Knight was actually spelling Carter early. So, like, the only reason Johnson got in was because Knight can't do everything. And so he'll come in on more of the passing downs like he could do and spell him a couple of carries.
Let's get Knight in there, and
Yeah.
I think we should hit the comments.
Okay, there's some comments. Good. That's good to know. Okay, let me just save that one up. Now, we'll get to the comments here in a second. Now, if we did find out Gibson wasn't going to play and Robinson was to play, who would we come off of in that scenario? Would we come off of Walker and then be able to pay up more off a Knight? Like, where would you guys want to go? Just to give the people an idea.
See, that's the thing. If we did that, then I'd probably be coming off of Mixon. Then we go up to Mahomes.
I agree with that. I like that. I do think Mixon makes an interesting.
And then if there's money, we go off of like Zovan.
Right. And then obviously if Mixon's out, then we go to P. Ryan. So we have some options for that lineup.
Yes, correct.
Speaking of options, our man Liam hits us with a question here. You guys can read it if you want to, or we can just answer it. I got it up on the screen. We didn't talk about Kyron Williams. He is interesting. Go ahead, Dan.
Out of these guys, I would probably lean towards Latavius Murray.
You're just playing Juju.
No, I go Pacheco.
I get why you play
Mike
Juju.
Boone is back. Latavius Murray is in a split backfield in a crap offense in Denver. Kyron Williams, same way, crap offense, split backfield. Pacheco, again, like Pacheco's probably the best of those 3 running backs because it's just him and McKinnon, but I'd still just take Juju.
Yeah, it's between Juju and Murray for me.
Yeah. See, I'm similar to Gov, though. I want the good offense. So it's between Juju and Pacheco. But Pacheco saw 22 attempts last week. I will say the Chiefs did pick up what's his name, the kid from Denver that got released, Melvin Gordon. So interesting pickup there.
Yeah, so who knows when Melvin Gordon is going to get into the mix, if ever, with them. So, like, again, I think the most consistent one of those with the best ceiling is Juju. Yeah.
I like Juju. I just think Pacheco has – I guess it goes back to what you need because I think Pacheco is more likely to score touchdowns, but Juju probably has a higher chance of targets. So I guess it just depends on what you need. It's only a half-point PPR, so I guess that's where I would lean Pacheco. But that if it was full PPR, I'm fully on board with Juju because I do think he's the underneath guy. I just think Sky Moore has a chance, more of an explosive chance to score like a long touchdown more than Juju does. Let's get to some more of these though. So he wants to know basically about Kittle with all the other with all the other injuries and bandages they have over with the 49ers and how banged up they are.
I mean, it's just Samuel. If Debo doesn't play, then yeah, Kittle should smash definitely. But like otherwise, McCaffrey's playing, Ayuk's playing.
Well, don't forget too, Jennings has seen more work in the slot. Actually, caught a touchdown last week. I don't necessarily think if Samuels is out, Kittle is a plug and play, automatic guy.
Kittle will do what he does, and he probably should deserve an extra target or two if you're not giving it to Debo. Like the short stuff Debo was doing will now be Kittle. The other guys will take the other things Kittle was doing.
Right. I do think that offense has gotten a little bit more creative than people think it has with the additions of Christian McCaffrey and then their willingness to bring in Jennings as a legit slot receiver this year, which they weren't doing last year. Kittle was kind of that slot guy, where Jennings has been working the middle more than you would have anticipated at the beginning of a fantasy season. Adam also wanted to mention of these three guys, I'm assuming he can only play one of them. Oh, he starts two.
Two.
I see that now. He's starting two of these guys. I'm gonna guess that's White from.
I mean, it's Hollins and it's Jeff Wilson because like if Lenny doesn't play, then it's Rachaad White. But a lot of these guys have if-then statements that you can't answer until Sunday morning.
So, Gov, I do know that Lenny was a practice participant this week. I don't know what that means.
Right, but I know that too, but I don't know if he's officially in or out.
Right.
If
I would say,
and that's Monday night too. So like this is another really tough one because like you need to just start Hollins and Jeff Wilson, but then you have no way of starting Rachaad White if Lenny's out. Right. So
I would say you definitely play Wilson, but Hollins and White, I would just go Hollins because you have no guarantee that Lenny's going to be out.
Yeah. I go Wilson too. I believe in narratives. I do think Wilson is pissed to not be on the 49ers. I don't think he's mad to be on the Dolphins, but I do believe in some of that narrative stuff. It doesn't always work out, but I do think some people hold a chip on their shoulders. And given that he's already been an underrated kind of chip on your shoulders type of guy, with his path to the NFL, I do think this game matters. And, you got Shanahan and Mike and that connection. And I don't know, tempers are going to flare a bit. And I do think this might just be a fuck you game. Excuse my language. I just don't know how else to say it. Like, I do think they're both going to be flexing their muscles here. So if I was going to go with the flex options for these guys, it would be Mac Hollins and Wilson. Obviously, with Hunter Renfrow still out, Mac Hollins, I think, is the more consistent guy. So, I mean, White gives you the high upside potentially, like Gov was saying, if Fournette's out. But if you need consistency, you need to make the playoffs. Those are the two guys for me. So, did you guys want to just build one lineup, or do you got like 10 more minutes? Because I think we can fly through a second lineup here.
We need to do our second spread pick.
Yeah, let's get the second. Yeah, I was about to say I probably have a hard out in about 20 minutes. So, and
fair enough.
My brother's texting me, so if I have to jump up again, I'll let you guys know.
Right. So we'll only build the one lineup this week then, and I did so well. Let's put that one lineup in a fun single entry contest. I think we'll find a fun single entry contest that we don't normally play. Because we don't normally build
find like a 100-man $1. See if we can go first. Only pays out the first or something. Because that's a real GPP lineup.
I like that. We'll do a smaller contest lineup like 100-man, and then we'll put it in a single entry, bigger contest, and then we'll kind of compare and contrast on Monday. That sounds like a lot of fun. And then Donnie will see the comparison between the two different structures of lineups.
Yeah, put in like a 100-man field, and then put in like 1,000+ man field.
Right, and then so you see, and then you can see the difference come Monday morning. I like that idea a lot, Gus. Thanks for that. Shoot any last minute questions, but we're gonna get to these spread picks so we can get on with our night here, guys. How do you want to break this down? Because I already have mine. This is my favorite.
I also have mine.
I have mine as well.
Can I just say my favorite one? Because
go for it.
Okay, so this is hunting season for anyone that's into hunting, right? And when you kill an animal, it's time to hang it up. You let it linger a bit, and you drain it of its blood, and then you start to hack away at it, right? And that might be morbid for some people, but like a lot of the season, we like to focus on Tampa was going to turn it around. Tampa's going to turn it around. They got the weapons. They got the talent. No, they've been hunted down. They're dead. It's time to hang the goat up on the tree and drain of its potential in its blood. This is the last straw for Tampa. They're gonna fail. Lattimore's coming back. You got Davenport coming back. Cam Johnson had another week of getting back. I like the Saints defense. Give me +4 with the Saints. Tampa's going to get blown out. This game isn't going to be close. Bye-bye, Tampa. See you later. Maybe next season with Kyle Trask because Tom Brady's not coming back. I think Tom Brady is done. I think he should be done. Maybe the witch doctor did something to him. I'm not sure. But Todd Bowles is the worst head coach in the league. I would rather have Lovie Smith. That's the last statement I'll say.
I mean that's a harsh way to put it. I can't pull out of Tampa yet just because I think that they have the most talent, but that division's all garbage. I don't trust Andy Dalton. If it was Jameis, I would be on it with you. I have for my second game the Commanders at -2. Because I think the Giants, they're at the point where late in the year, their talent isn't there to, show up.
Yeah.
I think this is where we finally see the Giants' deficiencies in their roster. They had a good run. They had a good year. We'll see you next year.
Talk about transparency. I do have the other side of that game, Donnie, but I do like that. We talked about it with our DFS lineup. The one thing I will say that's really intriguing about this matchup is the fact that Daniel Jones runs around a lot, and that could be advantageous for sacks or big plays. So I think either Daniel Jones is going to scramble around similar to Justin Fields and like make big chunk plays, that it's going to open up like Barkley or some of these receiving options that have been terrible, right? Or you're going to just see a terrible, no one can block for the Giants where Daniel Jones gets sacked 20 times. So, like, it's an either-or scenario. I don't think this is a close game, but I could see it going either way. Gov, what's your selection? I know we got to get you out of here, man. You got a hard out.
So as soon as my brother texts me, I got to leave. So, like, my game is I'm going again homering. I'm going to take the points, and I think the Bengals will actually beat the Chiefs.
Fair enough.
Minus what? Or plus what, I mean.
Plus 2.5 for the Bengals.
So let me end on this one really quickly. The three of us have our favorite teams, right? I think all three of us have favorite teams that have very pivotal games this week. So quickly, give me your quick 3 to 4 word statement on your teams. Gov, how confident are you that the Panthers are a playoff team, a contender, a legit thing with Sam Darnold?
Not at all. We need to tank, and we have a quarterback who is probably good enough to tank so that we can maybe get a good quarterback in the draft.
Fair enough. Donnie, what do you think about the Patriots? Are they we've seen the Patriots look good. We've seen them look terrible. What are the Patriots to you this season?
I think they win their next 2 against the Cardinals and Raiders, and then they lose out and against the Bengals, Dolphins, Bills. Cute season, not good enough offensively.
Fair question, though. Would you have more confidence if the Patriots somehow made the playoffs with Zappy or Mac?
Mac, because he knows, he is so reliable that it goes back to the consistency thing. He's so reliable that I trust that he's not gonna make mistakes. I think a lot of it's Matt Patricia on that offense, and that's why he's having such a slump. I'm not a Mac Jones fan. I've been very adamant I don't like Mac Jones, but that Mac Jones is not as bad as he's looked this year, and I will stand by that. Until Matt Patricia gets fired and he is out the damn door, I am not able to root for that offense at all.
So here's transparency for you. Jameson Williams changes the team, and he changes it this week. He probably doesn't put up a big fantasy score, but the presence of Jameson Williams, what he means to that team, what he represents to that team, the hope, the big playability, the Odell Beckham, I could change this franchise. Even the mantra of that could be huge. We saw the Giants get on a huge streak when Odell had his rookie emergence. There's already guys saying that DJ Shark said he should take my position. This guy's going to be a superstar.
Jameson Williams is better than DJ Chark. Like he's the better version of DJ Chark.
Yeah. Now I would agree with Guff. He's too expensive this week, and I think he could be limited. But I was going to play a lot of Kenny Pickett, and I switched to Jared Goff because that was my perfect way to play Jameson Williams this week, because it's like I don't need Jameson to have a full workload. We are the healthiest on offense we've ever been. I mentioned Swift not having a red jersey this week. I could see the Lions winning all of their games remaining. I don't think we have a tough team left on the schedule that we can't beat. We're probably favored in maybe all of the games outside of maybe one left. I think this is the easiest part of our schedule. If Jameson is that lightning bolt experience, which I don't think will happen this week, but I do think the electricity gets turned on, and I think that explosion week is next week, and that's the week I definitely want to play him in fantasy. Even if he scores a touchdown this week, I think, a guy coming back off an injury needs a week or two, but I think Jameson's going to make a huge difference for the Lions. With that being said, let's get out of here, guys. I only kept us about 7 minutes over from our longest show. I do apologize, but I do think the concept lineup was fun. We had the most comments, so that took a bit more time. Be safe, be smart, have fun. Any other last minute mantras you want to give to the people?
Thanks for all the comments today. It was fun. I really enjoyed the show. A different way to build a lineup.
It's definitely a different way to think, which is good. You have to take yourself out of your comfort zone.
Right. And I do think it built a lot of different fantasy perspectives too. Like if you guys went back and listened to why we wanted consistency at quarterback, we wanted a good, then you can apply it to your fantasy lineups as well. So hopefully not only did we answer some questions, but you guys can, even have some evergreen content there as well. So with that being said, I'm going to wrap up here. Have a good night, guys. And I'm going to go enjoy some UFC fights. I think there's some good fights on tonight. So with that being said, good night, guys. Have a good one.
Later, everyone.
Bye, everyone.